Welcome to the third episode of second edition of SCM Talk Show. So, as you know that we have this talk show every fortnight. I think we started in 2020, and last one was on 10th April. And the next one, because we do it every fortnight, is going to be on 8th May. And topics have been chosen from your responses to the survey that we sent. And as usual, this session also will be recorded and made available for free on our Novex mobile app and our Novex YouTube channel. So right now we are putting everyone on listen only mode. So if you have any questions, if you have anything to say, please submit the question in the chat box. And depending on the availability of the time, we will take few questions towards the end of the session. So let me start by introducing Mr. Balpreet Singh. So it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Balpreet Singh. Balpreet did his MBA from IIM Kozhikode and BE Mechanical from REC Rourkela, which is now called NIT Rourkela. So many of you would also know that I am also an alumnus of REC or NIT Rourkela. Balpreet has a work experience of about 18 years. Currently, he works at Reliance Industries as Assistant Vice President in IT Department. He is managing the delivery of digital transformation initiatives for internal customers. So earlier in his career, Balpreet worked in SCM consulting firms like SAP and Bristlecone, where he consulted global clients across industry verticals, processes, geographies, and cultures. He had in-depth exposure to supply chain optimization across various projects. So earlier in his career, he was also involved in a startup in the education sector called Career Compass. He has keen interest in mentoring and grooming students and young professionals. Balpreet is also a member of Board of Studies for Autonomous College in Mumbai, helping them to frame their own syllabus for management department. So welcome Balpreet to this talk show.
Thank you, Ravindra sir, and Novex for giving this opportunity to interact with the audience today. Thanks a lot.
So today's topic, Balpreet, is AI in supply chain, and as far as I know that you have been speaking on the subject on various platforms. This is not the first one, but we are lucky to have you here on SCM Talk Show. What we will do, as usual, we will have a question answer format for this talk show. Listeners can also submit their questions, as we said, in the chat box for Balpreet to answer. So let us start with some introduction. So my first question to you, Balpreet, is what is AI/ML? So if you can give a short idea about it, assuming that we are all laymen, and also please explain how AI/ML can help in supply chain management.
Okay, so Ravindra sir, let me give a very layman definition of what is AI and ML. AI or artificial intelligence is the superset. Machine learning is one of the components of that. So when we try to understand whatever has been put to use in industry, in the supply chain domain or across any other domain or function, mostly that we see what has been used is the subset of machine learning. AI in terms of technology and its usage is still maturing and probably a step behind machine learning algorithms. So with that, obviously it forms a part of the overall part, and hence in normal lingo we call it usage of AI in various areas. Now, if we look at the algorithms, what does AI or machine learning does? So, in simple words, they try to automate or they try to assist humans in order to make their life easy. The methodologies that is followed is obviously it is a computer program which gets developed, which will access data. However, in normal programs, we have to give the, let's say, formula or the logic that A plus B equals C. In this case, in AI or ML, the program learns on itself. We don't have to explicitly tell the formula to that. So that is how it differs from the traditional programming as such. Now there are two kinds of algorithm, or the way algorithm gets built up. One we call as supervised learning algorithms, and the other is unsupervised. So the name supervised, as it tells about, it is basically that it needs human effort to help the machine come to the final level of expertise that we expect it to be. So if we have the data which is all properly labeled, then we would be able to use that in the supervised methodology. So what is done basically is a set of data which we call as training data set that is taken. Using that training data set, the program is made to understand that what is the inference that we are trying to draw, what is the prediction or the output that we are trying to get out of that. So using this training data set, when we feel that the level of the output or the percentage of correctness is up to the level that we desire, then the training has come to a conclusion. So in other words, we can also think of it in a way that a teacher is supervising the learning process of the students. So once the student has learned to a level, then it can be then they don't need the teacher as such. In this case, then the supervised learning method would be stopped for that period of time, and then the program would be able to be put to use in real life world. So there will be multiple iterations of using this training data set to come to the prediction levels that we want. The other kind of machine learning, which is the unsupervised learning, the goal here is that the model will understand the underlying structure or distribution of data and try to get something meaningful out of it. Mostly unsupervised algorithms are used where the data is unlabeled and algorithm has to learn that how to make clusters out of it, as an example. So here, as the name suggests, there is no teacher because it is unsupervised. It is just that the data is there and algorithm is left on its own to discover what are the structures underneath that data. Can we make some clusters around it? So there are various usage that unsupervised learning is put into it. So this is how, in a very short and a basic way, that we can learn about it. Obviously, there are a lot more details in terms of what kind of algorithms that can be used for a machine learning or AI, what is deep learning, how can we get into what kind of hardware needs, etc. So we'll not go into those much of details. We'll keep it simple that two kinds, supervised and unsupervised. Now let's come into how can we use them into supply chain.
So right, that was my next question, that how do we use into supply chain? What are the benefits and what are the challenges to use this AI into the SCM processes?
Yes. So if we look at it in terms of supply chain processes in any business process, what we do is try to look at either a decision support, or we would try to automate those processes wherever there is a lot of manual input. So it will be the same case for supply chain processes as well, that how we'd be able to use them. So either if there is something which is being done by humans, by individuals, then we would be putting in a logic therein, an ML logic or an AI algorithm, which would be making that effort of a person redundant, because it would be something repetitive that a machine would be able to do it faster and with lesser amount of probability of errors. The other part could be assisting human decision making, when some inference would be coming out of data, and then we would use that in our day-to-day office work and try to make meaningful output out of it. So these are two different areas. Now, what are the benefits if we are using them? If you look at it, benefits, the upside is enormous when we look at in supply chain, in any function of it, be it planning, be it logistics, be it manufacturing, it has a lot of benefits. So first and foremost, that most of the industries look after is cost saving via redundancies in the work. So if there is something which is redundant, can we figure out? If there is something which is repetitive, can we remove that and put in an algorithm which can do that? So this is one major area of cost saving that makes AI or ML such a hot property. The other smaller corollaries are, for example, improved forecasting of finished goods. It could also help in optimizing delivery routes and hence leading to faster deliveries. It can help in improving customer services. The example could be having an AI-based chatbot, which would be able to give quicker answers to the customers rather than they waiting for a call center on phone or an email to respond to them. There could be a lot of admin work which leads to wastage of time which can be reduced. So these are the positive parts of it. Now, if you look at the challenges, so challenges that come forth whenever we look into any such programming solution, one is the investment. How much of it in terms of an upfront investment that we have to do. Then the other part is that when we are bringing in a new technology like AI, then how does it assimilate with the current IT system that a company has, and how would the interplay be? So there might be a need of a regular investment as well over and above the initial investment that we have done. Then comes in the bigger challenge, I would say, is the organizational change management. Whenever we bring in such things, there are pushbacks in the organizations that because of one major reason, that what would happen to the people whose jobs are getting redundant due to such technologies. So fear of job loss. What will I do from tomorrow? That way. Then another bigger hassle that we have been seeing is about the IT security concern. What about when we start using in so many IT systems? What about a cyber security risk? Recently, for example, there was a news article on one of the bigger players in the fast food market. The data of customers got leaked. So these are those IT concerns that definitely come in, because when we talk about AI, then we would have to get a lot of data into one central system where all the jugglery would be done. And if somebody hacks into this central system, then obviously data pilferage would happen. So this is how the hassles that come into the picture when we are talking about AI being used in SCM.
So I hear that a lot of in supply chain planning, you also mentioned about forecasting. So, AI is used in forecasting, and it can improve forecasting accuracy and so on. There are various schools of thoughts, whether we should use forecasting or demand driven and so on and so forth. So do you have any case where this AI ML was applied into forecasting and, you had some exciting results? Do you have any project or any case or any customer, or in your work experience or current work experience, whatever?
I can cite one example which has been widely published. There are a lot of other examples that I know about based on whenever I talk to a lot of people around, but those are not published, and hence I would not be able to talk about them. But something which is published, which we know that has happened and the organization has shown results, is what we'll talk about. So this example is about demand forecasting as a new project being done by Walmart Labs for their in-house usage in Walmart. So this is something which tells us about the power of AI when we put it to use with humongous amount of data. So if you look at it from a basic stats about Walmart, we know that it is the biggest grocer or retailer around the world. It had in last year, 2020, a revenue of around $524 billion. Now, for such a big organization, when we talk about demand forecasting, it is a Herculean task. Some numbers, if I can cite about it, within just the US stores of Walmart, they have 500 million store items which have to be forecasted. And if we add to that 11,000 plus stores which they have outside of US geography, and each stores would have probably thousands of items that they store, so this 500 million would increase definitely by few hundred millions anyways. Now this is the challenge that demand planners had in Walmart, that they had to grapple with on a day-to-day basis. How do we manage to put in right amount of SKUs in on the shelf of a specific store, so that there is no stock out in one place and there is no over inventory stored in some other place. This is where comes in Walmart Global Technology. They started this project in 2018. They wanted to build a scalable platform which would be able to be used across various formats and products that Walmart is into, and help them improve the demand forecasting levels. The problem statement which they first started with as their proof of concept, or the first, the terminology that a lot of people would be knowing about, is MVP, minimum viable product. So the first problem statement was reduce perishable waste and optimize the inventory so that they'll be able to serve customer better. And this was for their specific products which were perishable. If we talk about any other products which have a longer shelf life, probably they have more leeway to play around. But if it is something like a food item or a dairy or a meat product, then the shelf life is very less. They get perished sooner. So Walmart wanted to target that first. They wanted to improve the forecasting levels over and above the current, at that point of time, the forecast methodologies that were being used. They also wanted to provide flexibility to the demand planners to override some output which the new AI model would be giving them. However, recording those inputs also was a key, so that later there could be analysis that if at all there were changes done, where they were done for good or they brought down that. So the manual touches had to be minimal, but if needed, they could be done with a recorded input of why they were being done. Now, if we look at in terms of the other matrices they wanted to focus apart from forecasting, was reduce the wastage. So the metrics was how many dollars they would be saving, so that they'll be able to see that the amount of investment that they are doing in this new technology, does it give them a good business ROI as well. Now, challenges that they had was they had their legacy systems, multiple legacy systems. The data had to come out of that into one system from which they would be able to use these new algorithms in order to reach the level of KPIs that they wanted. So they had, in terms of data size, 75 billion historical data points for those 500 million store SKU touch points that they were trying to take care of. So for these 75 billion historical data points, any legacy system would have failed to bring out the output in a meaningful or a specific time-bound manner. Using this 75 billion historical data points, they wanted to forecast 25 billion future data points. So they started getting into it. They figured out the normal demand planning methodology, I would put it, that which are my fast moving items, which are the long tails, do I have seasonality, so on and so forth. So the theory or the logics remain the same, just that the tool becomes newer. So finally, when they started their MVP, the minimum viable product, it was for meat and produce department in June 2018 across certain stores in the US. Got a very good output and started scaling it up to all the stores across US for these two meat and produce departments across that. And they started looking at, then they saw in terms of, the output being good enough, then they started going outside also in the month of February 2019. So from June 2018, by February, they had such confidence that they started going to some markets outside the US market as well, primarily in North America, Canada and Mexico, and also UK in Europe as well. And by July 2020, another year later, this new methodology was used by all departments within Walmart US. Initially, they started with only 2, then they came in, started using for all. So in terms of numbers, if you look at it, what improved? A 300 basis point improvement in the forecasting accuracy that they saw. They also saw that the human touches that the planner had to make had come down, and hence the time that they spent in order to make things correct had come down. So this was a couple of things that made them believe that yes, this is something which is of a success story, a case study that they can start publishing outside. So I think this is one good example for us to understand that how for such a big retailer, AI being used for demand forecasting can actually deliver the goods.
No, thank you so much. So actually, I also have seen some videos of Walmart and Amazon and warehouses, and there are a lot of robots running around. There's a lot of automation which is there, and I am told a lot of automation uses AI ML. So I think AI ML is being used in warehouses also, and I think production plants also. So do you have any also case studies there in using of warehouses or plants where AI ML is used?
Right, sir. So as you rightly said, some of these names that we already keep hearing about, be it Amazon or even in India, Flipkart has started using some of these robots. But when I was researching, I came across one, very interesting case study of a British online grocer. The name is Ocado, OCADO. How they have been able to turn around their fortunes using AI is something that I would want to talk about today. This grocer was called a 2-decade-old overnight success story. They started in the year around 2000. It took them almost 2 decades to become a sort of an overnight success, as people talk about. So there's a lot of water has flown down the bridge. So which is what makes it an interesting case study. So they, in the first 8-10 years of their survival, they did some good things, but they were not able to come to that level that people start talking about it. In fact, when late in 2009 and 10, one of the analysts that talked about Ocado that it will be a 0 because the name starts with an O and ends with an O. But finally, when they started using AI and machine learning technologies, they made everyone chew their own words that how they can deliver. So as you talked about, sir, about the warehouse automation, this was one of the key areas where Ocado focused on. So their warehouse has AI-enabled robots, and they are able to take care of 50,000 orders that come to them in 5 minutes. So this is the level of expertise that these AI-enabled robots has. On top of these robots, Ocado also has an Industry 4.0 framework that they have used within their manufacturing setup, the distribution setup basically, because this is an online grocer. And by the success that they had, Ocado in fact has now started a technology arm where they help all other e-commerce companies also do the same and try to leverage the success that Ocado had from their own technologies, and they sell it to them. So this way they are not only trying to improve what they are doing in-house, they are also trying to use the same technology and let others use in different geographies so that we as customers get the best out of it. So this, in terms of how, a swarm of robots can take care of 50,000 orders in a matter of 5 minutes, is something which I feel we can have a good takeaway in terms of what a great success story that Ocado has had. And in turn, it helps us as a customer also, because it gives us a better customer service. We don't have to wait for long to get our orders service if I am a customer of Ocado. It also helps in reduction of wastage, get the inventory in right place at right time. So many other things get aligned. This is the time saving that robots do to them.
Great, wonderful. So there is also a similar question here, and I'm also going to ask the same question. That our impression is that this AI ML requires a lot of expensive investment, lot of investment. I mean, so. Here the question was, is it good for small to medium enterprises? So my question also is very similar, whether these technologies can it be used in a small enterprise or with a small investment? Is that possible, or you have to look at Reliance type of organizations only?
Well, AI actually thankfully gives us a spectrum of usage that we can look at it. So while the examples that we talked about are bigger, capital intensive, which needs a lot of investment at the start, however, there are very pointed solutions that we could use. So a couple of them, if I talk about, one of them is robotic process automation. So if there is something which is a mundane admin task being done by a set of people, if we try to automate that using RPA as a technology, in a lot of cases it has AI built into it, then we would be able to use with these tools with minimal, a very small investment upfront. Herein, let me give an example, a very successful case study, so that we will be able to appreciate how it brought in a good return on investment for a company. So the case study here I'll cite about is Schneider Electric. So a lot of us would have heard about it. Schneider actually, Schneider Electric has a very complex supply chain, because the kind of product that they manufacture are for retail customers and also for big manufacturing facilities also. So the kind of circuit breakers that they would produce, as an example, is something that they can be sold out of store shelf, and we could use it in a smaller setup, or it could be size of a large room, which can only be used in a very huge manufacturing setup. Now, Schneider Electric had a very small use case, that they wanted to eliminate repetitive tasks which was being done by some of their people, so that they could be put to use in other better jobs. So here, when they were manufacturing these electrical switchboards for apartments and buildings, so these switchboards also had to have the documents which go with them, so that when people are trying to assemble that on the side, they'll be able to understand that how they have to assemble it. Now, these documents were earlier prepared by operators whose only job was to look at the circuit, the setup, and make those documents, so that when these circuit breakers are getting installed, there is no mistake being done. This is where a robotic process automation helped them. So introduction of a robot helped free up 2 employees who were doing day in, day out the work of preparing this document. And now this, instead of these people spending hours and days all together, it was a matter of minutes, using an automated Outlook inbox and robotic process automation, a matter of minutes that the document was created. So this is an example of a very small investment. It could be a matter of 2 to 5 days that it might take to implement such thing, and effectively on the the IT infra side, also very minimal infra that we would need in order to do an RPA kind of a case study or a use case being implemented by even a smaller and SME, small and medium enterprise as well.
Yeah, thank you. So I have also heard about RPA being used quite widely and so on. I mean, it's not a small organization, but Hindustan Petroleum, being a large organization, I've heard that they used RPA to pick up the customer orders, from paper to automatically into the database. And I think I know about a friend in Bangalore, a very small organization who used RPA again. So I think RPA, yeah. Thank you so much. So my next question would be how we are going to use AI. What are the trends, especially in supply chain management? How are we going to use it? Do you see solution providers like, I mean, all these SAPs and Oracles and whosoever who are providing solution in supply chain management space, they are embedding AI and ML into their software solutions?
Yes, sir. So if we look at it, if we go out in the market and look at a lot of these providers have started embedding at least machine learning in some way or the other. Obviously, the generic name is AI, that they say that they have started embedding AI. In fact, yeah, there was a news yesterday that Blue Yonder, one of the premium providers in the supply chain market, Panasonic has taken over a majority stake in that. They had a minority stake earlier. However, now they have taken it over at a overall price of around $7.1 billion. So this is one data point which tells us that this market is definitely promising. There are a lot of players who are already there and others who would want to come into it. If we look at it from some of the maturity curve, some data points. So there is a technology maturity curve that Forbes brings out. So what Forbes does try to tell that whenever a technology which comes in, at the start of the curve, any new technology is called as hype, where there is a lot of talk about it, but probably it doesn't give us the output or the returns that we would want. In the next stage, the technology becomes promising. It starts showing more returns than the hyped phase. Then the next stage is where it gives a high return on investment, but still it is not widely adopted. Finally, the stage is where everybody starts adopting it, and then it ages and a new technology comes up. So on this technology maturity curve, AI and machine learning platform, when Forbes came out with their study in December 2019, which they called it as a report of 2020, they said that AI and ML platforms are still in hyped stage. So there were far and few use cases. However, a year later, for the report of 2021, which came in December 2020, AI and ML has now moved to a promising stage, which is stage number 2. What this tells us is that the technology platform is maturing. There are a lot of providers who have started to show some ROI into it rather than just using the word AI and ML as a jargon in order to sell that. Now, if I look at in terms of some other numbers, so artificial intelligence, AI in supply chain market, a study done in 2018, the market size was around $700 million, and it is expected that by 2025, 4 years from now, from that 730 million, it would reach to more than $10 billion. So the CAGR expected was around 45%. So now that Forbes is also talking about that it is moving from hype to promising, the number would definitely be met, or it will be beaten for sure. So as I talked about earlier also, there are two areas where we see that AI has started making inroads. Two major areas are augmentation and automation. So where I can augment what the people are already doing by decision support or by automating cases like RPA. So from the perspective of major players, If I talked about Blue Yonder, if I talk about SAP, one the biggest ERP provider, they have also embedded a lot of these AI and ML algorithm in multiple places. In be it the supply chain planning part or somewhere on the logistics parts, they've started to do. Oracle has also started doing that as well. So this way, definitely, the trend is here to stay. Okay, am I audible now?
Yeah, you're audible now.
Yeah, sorry, I lost network for a minute. So challenges of working in a connected world. So I think I lost connectivity when I was talking about how promising the market is. Uh, I was talking about how the bigger providers like SAP and others have started embracing AI and ML. So I was that heard, or shall I repeat that?
No, actually, yeah, you may. We actually came to a point where you started talking about SAP and other players, but I think
okay,
we can continue after that.
Sure. So what I was talking about is SAP, Oracle, Blue Yonder, and all other such providers have embedded AI and ML in some shape or form in their various the modules or the offerings that they have. So if I talk about Oracle, for example, Oracle has they call it Oracle Adaptive Intelligent Apps for Manufacturing. So this is where they have tried to embed AI in their offerings. In the same way, SAP has also done it in multiple places. So be it their, the SAP supply chain planning suite, or be it in other places. So what IDC as one of the research providers was talking about is when the AI-driven automation solutions of SAP were used, it led to 81% faster completion of business processes by the SAP customers, and the teams also became far more efficient by using that. And this way, if we look at it, Manhattan Associates, OM Partners, or O2 Solutions, so all of them, some of them being new generation providers who started with a core AI and ML as an offering, and then they got taken over. An example was Blue Yonder. So JDA took over Blue Yonder, took the name as Blue Yonder itself because it was sort of a startup within that area. So this way, the market is sort of on fire, if I put it, because this is the way that each and every provider look at it, is that unless and until they'll be able to provide some of these AI offerings, they would not be able to survive in the market vis-a-vis their competitors. So we would see a lot more action happening in it, as I feel, in next 2 to 4 years, because the technology has started maturing and people have started feeling that there is an ROI that they can look up to.
So actually, which areas you think will get impacted by this AI ML first, and how AI ML is going to impact the supply chain in the future?
Yes. So if we talk about this, there's another technology roadmap that I would want to mention here. So what happens is, in terms of the maturity curve, firstly, whenever we look at in terms of usage of AI algorithms, the initial part that comes in terms of use cases is, how can I give visibility from the data set that I have? Because any process, be it any tool that the organization might be using, or even if they may be putting in their data only in an Excel for that matter, there's data therein. Can I get some meaningful visibility out of it? So that is the first thing. And a lot of dashboarding and charting tools like Tableau or Microsoft Power BI, all those come to use with some inherent AI or machine learning algorithms, or a very plain Jane data science algorithms working behind that. So this is like transactional usage of the technology in hand. Then the next part comes in predictive. So this is where things like a demand forecasting, which the Walmart labs example was pointing to, comes into picture. That can I predict what is going to happen? Or from an optimization perspective, which route do I pick up when I'm doing, for example, a milk run planning, so that I have a saving of the cost that way. The third comes in prescriptive. So this is where, when we come to prescriptive, this is where the actual AI starts coming into picture. So it could be like, a control tower for supply chain KPIs using embedded AI would start getting used. And the last stage is autonomous, wherein the whole cognitive thought being done could be done by an AI system. So this is the aspirational level. Most of the companies are between level 1 and 2 now. Some of them have started getting into level 3 that way. So we would see a lot of visibility and predictive part that's wherein, and this is where I would say is where all the organization would be able to get better sense and value of the investment that they are doing. Now, if I talk about, basis this, whichever areas that from a supply chain processes per se that we can focus on. So demand planning and scheduling could be where people can focus on. Walmart has given us a good case study on how they were able to turn around things, and definitely even a smaller organization would be able to do a lot of it. After that, production planning becomes, the next level, a little more complex than a demand forecasting. However, using some self-correction mechanism, which are complex than a demand forecasting mechanism, however, still achievable, could be the next step, I would say, for the organizations that they can look at. And some of the providers in the market are trying to focus into these areas for sure. Then the end-to-end supply chain visibility, so which is the level 3 in terms of prescriptive, that a supply chain control tower is what can be put to use in terms of a big use case. Here, a study by IBM and Frost and Sullivan, which came in late 2019, is of a prime importance, because a lot of supply chain, the chief supply chain officers talked about poor visibility across their supply chain function as one of the biggest challenge that they face. Now, if technology is able to take care of that, definitely it brings in a lot of value, and a lot of heartaches which goes around in the organization would come down. So definitely this is something which I've been hearing about, control towers here and there, but in terms of a constructive case study, I couldn't find still coming out as something published. So this is something where I would say the organization can focus on. Then there are probably some other areas in terms of inventory management, how where to put in the right inventory in terms of complex optimization algorithms can be used, or in terms of the logistics routing, that how can I which would be the better route that should be followed. So this is where somewhere it reminds me one of my practical experiences. So when I, in couple of cases, I see when I order something from Amazon, so the product gets shipped from southern Rajasthan, it goes up north within Rajasthan, probably it's a hub and spoke model. From there, then it comes to Mumbai. So that way, they would be looking at a global optima to some merit. So that is something, is my inference, that they would be having some sort of a system behind it, because logically I would feel that if it is southern Rajasthan, it should come directly to me in Mumbai. But if it is going elsewhere, means there is some sort of a network optimization being put into effect. So this is how I feel, probably an AI is getting used in the back end. And the other area, probably the first visibility part that I talked about, the augmented analytics, is something which we've started seeing a lot of places. And this is something definitely which would be a great ROI for a lot of companies.
So I'm sure everything is not hunky-dory, though it looks that way. So what is the catch, or what is the future of AI in supply chain? Where is the catch?
Yes, sir. So, yes, there are a lot of positives, but when we talk about any such big change that comes in, we need to think about the pitfalls as well. One big challenge when we talk about any AI system is data quality. Uh, if I don't have quality data, it might be a case of garbage in, garbage out. And this has also been highlighted as one of the biggest concern or challenges by Forrester as well, that the lack of quality data is hampering how AI can get scaled up. Uh, what happens is in organizations would have data, but they might not get properly labeled. They might be, even master data challenges of same thing being called by different names in different geographies, or different subsidiaries within the organizations. These are practical challenges. It has been there even when an ERP implementation goes on ground, and when a big organization tries to re-engineer their ERP models. So when it comes to AI, this definitely has to be taken care of. In some cases, as I remember one of the seminars that I was part of, one of the CIO talked about spending 6 to 12 months just to get the quality of data correct. Only then they can start thinking of getting improvement in the forecasting or the output of an AI model. So this is biggest challenges that I see. The next is the cost of integration of AI system with the existing IT setup that an organization has. In lot of cases, what happens is that based on the legacy, in some cases they would have been various takeovers or mergers would have happened. There could be disparate system that an organization would be running on. Now, when it comes to AI, it has to be properly integrated, and in a way that the data comes in ready to be used for such models. So this is the next big challenge, and from an IT investment perspective, the amount of money going in would be on the higher side, because they'll have to invest in hardware which is ready to work for such complex AI models, which was not the case earlier with the legacy IT systems that they have. Then the next factor within the IT ambit comes in the scalability part. As we see, if we talk about how much of data that we start churning out. So if we talk about any industry in a retail facing manner, they would want to sense data of what their customers are doing. So they would need a scalable cloud-based architecture, so that any such increase in data, they'll be able to take care of those needs in a seamless manner. However, it comes in with a huge cost that we would have to hire or put up an investment on getting these cloud platforms subscribed for our organization. Another big challenge then that comes in is the skill gap and hence cost of training. While when I talked about Forbes talking about AI and ML platforms moving from hype to promising, the challenge that I have seen is about people not having the right kind of skills to work on these models. Now, this is little different than a normal programming that is being done, and for good AI engineer or an ML or a data scientist, uh, people have to spend a lot. There are these talents which are getting salary hikes not by percentage but by times, because they are so good. So this is a skill gap which is there for now, and it might take probably few years to get this divide as less as possible. It's a huge divide as of now. Probably the need of the AI professionals would go into probably higher lakhs to a million, but in terms of proper skill sets available, they would be probably lower lakh. So the bridge is high that. And a couple of finer points on this is operational costs. When we start putting in, highly skilled people who have high salaries, we have put in so much of cloud-based infrastructure, put in on, data cleansing and all. What it means is that to run it on a day-to-day basis as well, we would have to put in that much amount of money regularly. It would also mean that on a regular basis, I'll have to update my hardware as well. So this turns out to be expensive. And probably this is the reason that Forbes has told that as of now, this technology is promising. It is not on the high ROI, or it is already giving high ROI, because the cost benefit is still tilted towards those organizations who are with deep pockets, and it may not be still democratized the way we would want it.
Great. So, Balpreet, we are not going to ask you about your salary, but we would like to have advice, how our participants can earn the salary that you talked about. So we'll come to that question a little later, but to begin with, ask you some about your personal career and how you built up your career and how you came into this field and so on. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey, starting from your school or college or wherever, and how you came into this AI, ML, and what did you do? What certification, if at all, technical, non-technical? What helped you, arrive at where you are currently?
So my schooling happened in multiple states, starting from South Bihar, which is now Jharkhand, to Karnataka, and then MP. Did my engineering from Odisha as your junior, sir. Then my MBA from again South. So interestingly, people probably seeing me as a Sikh would probably think I would be from North. But my family from last 3 generations hails from Jharkhand. I've never stayed in North India for that matter. So, this is my biggest ever stint in a city for almost 10 years now. Otherwise, thanks to my dad's transferable job, we kept moving around. Now, as regards to my career, since I had a brief stint in a manufacturing industry post REC, and then after MBA, I landed up in supply chain consulting, because operations was something which was where I wanted to build my career on. And that's how, technology as an enabler, for me, it is about supply chain and how we can improve business processes. And a technology could be anything. Earlier, it used to be, an ERP or an allied, SAP or it could be an I2, etc. I've primarily worked on SAP as such. However, in last 5 odd years, we saw that the technology started getting more, broad-based, and that's how my transition into it. I see these tools as only an enabler, and my work is to connect these technologies to the business folks so that they'll be able to get the benefits that they want, and I'll be able to give them the right direction in terms of which sort of technologies that would be good for them. So that's how my career has been. I did not ever plan to be in AI ML as such, but just that I saw that there is a value that it is giving back to my business, and hence I started getting more into it and learning into it so that it helps me deliver my work better and keeps my customers happy.
So did you do some training, some sort of certification for AI ML, or to get expertise on this?
Yes, so we have been trained in-house on a lot of these things. So when we started, thinking about all those things, so we thankfully in my current employer, we got a lot of opportunities to do that. So that helped us take some POCs and see that how we can get benefit out of it. I can't specifically talk about those specific use cases, but then initially when we gave value, people started thinking about using it more and more. And that made me and others start, doing a lot of this. So a lot of classroom studies, as well as then an effort on our own to go into these online providers, be it Coursera and others, where we would be able to learn and start to deliver it to our customers in-house.
So what is your advice to listeners, if they would like to get into the similar field of AI, ML, how can they go about it? How can they earn salaries into 8 figures, 10 figures, So that's my question.
So if somebody has a very good, technical bent of mind, good in coding, I think they are going to earn very good in next few years if they are able to get into data science to get started with, and then ML algorithms and AI. So this is where the world is moving in, at least that the way I see for next few years. So that's one part for people who are probably lesser in terms of number of years of experience and can think of even jump or change in the career that they have. For people who are senior enough, I think it is a matter of just a new technology which is coming in for people, let's say either in consulting or in a manufacturing setup. It is about knowing what the technology can do for you and your organization or for your customer. You need to understand and embrace these changes in a way that you'll be able to get the right skill set, do that project for you, and deliver the output. So in terms of skills, like rather than going into the regular project management methodology, here comes in the DevOps method or the agile methodology, having a scrum based approach. So these are new ways of working that we'll have to embrace in order to be a part of the change that is happening in the professional world.
Excellent. So I think we are running out of time. So I'll hand over to Nistush to share some questions, that listeners have asked. So I think, so you may want to address the questions from listeners. So over to Nistush.
Right. Thank you so much. Incredible session. A lot of 8-figure salaries being discussed, 8-10 figures. I'm sure the listeners will have got excited, from the field. So let's get on to the questions. It is. So I'll start with the first question. Most of the questions asked have been taken in one form or the other. I've on the episode, but let's go by each question. And the first is from Mr. Jay Dubey. So he says, "Hello, Balpreet. What are the failures you have encountered while implementing AI/ML, and how did you find remedies for them?"
Okay, so I will talk about generic stuff. I can't be specific to the use cases of my employer. So the challenges mentioned that we talked about what I've been talking to other people, since my past colleagues or my friends. So the biggest challenge that we see is the skill gap that everybody is grappling with. Whenever somebody talks about means if they are for their own organization, if somebody wants to implement AI, or in consulting, when a customer tells them that they want, the challenge is people would have heard, people want it, but we don't have the right skill set to deliver it. The other part becomes the challenge of data and investment. So which is where then in some cases a small pointed solution, like RPA, comes to the benefit of the organization. That can we look at those specific use cases where we can reduce the manual work, automate it in a way that we can enable those people doing that to work on something more productive. For top management, probably the challenge always is that I don't know what is happening where. Now, these are a lot of pitfalls that I've heard from my friends in consulting, that they've been able to deliver to their customer some visualizations which helps the top management get almost like a real-time update on what is happening in their various functions, be it manufacturing, be it planning, be it logistics, warehouses, what is happening there almost on a real-time basis, so that at least early warning signals are caught in. So these are, the challenges and how people have been trying to overcome them.
Perfect. So the next question is from Mr. Dibyendu. He says, no doubt AI would be good approach for bigger SKU counts, extended geography, and varying customer base. But how good are these for medium and small enterprises?
They would be as good for a medium and small enterprise also, in terms of, rather than not trying to do it what Walmart did, like an in-house effort, probably by looking at a SaaS product which would be in that budget of what us an SME, a small or medium enterprises would be able to chalk out, and so that they'll be able to use that. So there are these providers who are coming up as an independent startup, who might be able to offer these services at a good budget to small and medium enterprise as well. So in short, don't try to do things in-house. Better use a SaaS product, because that way you would be able to control your cost and not have any upfront investments.
Perfect. So the next question is from a last speaker, squadron leader, Mr. Vijay Kumar, and it is related to your current employer. So you may choose to pass also, sir. He says, what is the extent of using AI ML in SCM by Jio? What are the biggest challenges, implementations other than the mindset and investment size faced by you? Did you have data porting errors? How did you reduce challenges?
So as I said, I would not be able to comment on that, even though I would want to. I can talk about what I talked about in the earlier answer to the question, that these are the challenges not only for JioMart or it is for everybody. These were challenges we always face. In my 17-18 years of experience, this is what I have seen that we have been grappling with, and this is how when I was in consulting, we got our business that somebody has a challenge, we'll go and try to solve it. And now we have a tool which is AI embedded in it, and we'll be able to take care of these challenges that the clients have. In our case, it's an in-house customer. In other cases, it would be their customer. So others have been able to do that. If you look at it from a rather than looking at Jio, for example, if you look at the example that I talked about for Walmart, so they had 75 billion data points that they had to use in order to forecast 25 billion data points, and they were able to crack it. So what it tells us is that yes, there will be challenges. We have to start small, build an MVP, a minimum viable product, showcase it to the business, get their buy-in, and start scaling up as soon as we can. So this way, we'll have to find out challenges, answer to the challenges that are posed by all these problems that we keep coming up when we are trying to solve this business use case.
Perfect. Nicely taken that, sir. So the next one is says, is there any example where AI increased the logistics efficiency or warehouse efficiency?
Well, the example that I talked about on Ocado, that's wherein the warehouse efficiency, how it improved, is a great example, and that's wherein I felt I should bring that up today. Robots being put to use, and they are able to take care of 50,000 orders in 5 minutes. Think about how many people we would need if we had even a semi-automated warehouse with some sort of forklift or a conveyor belt doing something. These are robots. Similarly, another example now which I can recall is in China, JD.com, one of their bigger e-com player, they have a warehouse which is manned only by robots. They have limited people working there. Their only job is to take care of anything which happens to those robots. If there is any malfunction, they'll go and repair that. So these are the examples where we know that warehouse efficiency can reduce n times by using AI.
All right, perfect. So I'll go to the next question. It's from Kansara Raj. With mid-career work experience with non-technical background, how do you suggest people should learn AI/ML while being in purchase or related SCM area?
So the first question would be, where is it that you see you would want to take your career? And if it is about, let's say, I'm not sure where do you work on. So let's say assuming you are in a manufacturing company, you could probably think of it in moving to, let's say, a consulting firm where your domain knowledge could be put to use. And AI and ML as such is only a tool. At the end of it, the domain experience is what matters, that how can I get somebody to do things for me in order to take care of that business problem. So there'll be somebody who will be good in coding, but the domain experience that you have can still be put to use. So you need to be aware of what AI and ML does to a good extent, so that at least you'll be able to understand when the developer is talking about something, and you'll be able to tell it to your clients in the business language. So that part of learning would need to be done by you.
Okay. So we'll take last two questions here. This is from Mr. Sarang. So he says, sir, sometimes observe people find difficult whether start putting problem solutions through AI ML or first finding solution with supply chain management domain and then find which technology they can help it. So what can be a good approach? And a person adds with the least cost as well.
Well, at the end of it, I look at it in terms of any problem has to be having a solution within the domain. So if we take the example of what Walmart did, they wanted to improve their forecast accuracy and wanted to reduce wastage. Now they could, what it meant was that they have to look at a newer tool because their existing tool was not able to give them the desired output. So at the end of it, theory remains the same, that if I have to look at that, how do I improve my forecast accuracy, I would go back to what are my theories behind demand planning. So that will always be there. Technology, earlier it was, let's say, I could have done it in Excel in some cases, or maybe any other bigger provider based on which industry or which vertical that we are in. Now I have another tool which has an AI or an ML algorithm embedded in it. So technology is just an enabler. Without domain knowledge, we would not be able to get anything out of it. This is like a tool means it is like a toy. Yeah, I don't know how to play with it. I just want to play with it. It would not work. I need to know where I can put that to use. So finding the right business case to solve is the key, which is where the knowledge of supply chain domain comes in of paramount importance. I hope I've answered that to satisfaction.
Correct. I hope so. To Sarang, Mr. Sarang, just to add to your another question, any cases? So yeah, that would discussed in the episode. So about Walmart and Schneider and a couple of more. So once you go back to the recording, you might have those examples. All right, so we'll just go to the last question, which is by Mr. Dibyendu. How to get more insights in RPA, any institution, professional body, extending in terms of certifications or anything like that?
So I see RPA, if you start reading through, I'm not sure of any certification as such, because it's a very small, pointed use case and a tool that way. So I have to, for example, the way we talked about the Schneider Electric case study, that I have to automate something wherein somebody was doing it manually. Can I do it via something else? It could also be, for bigger organizations. Let's say, there are some maybe something related to GST, uploads being done, or some other returns being, filed elsewhere. So somebody goes and fetches data, puts in an Excel, and uploads it somewhere. So these are the things which RPA can do. So the more you read about such use cases online, I think you'll get a hang of it. Now there are providers which do it, which have these solution for RPA. So they are they try to package it in a way that the customers would be able to use it. In some other cases, people code it on their own. They know that what I have to do, y is equal to ax plus b sort of, and they try to code it and get it done in-house. So excuse me. So there's no certification, at least that I know. This is more technology oriented as such, that somebody would need to code it, either one of the providers being, let's say, UiPath, how they code it that way. So we'll have to know that coding standards and methodologies. Or the other way is that I understand the business problem and I know that an RPA could be put to use, and I get those providers and connect the business with the technology provider and give them the desired output.
Perfect, great. So I think it was a pretty insightful session, and I have a lot of food for thought for the audiences. They're going back with big figures and big dreams in mind now. Sure, it's going to be an exciting way ahead for AI ML. So thank you so much for joining in, Mr. Balpreet. Thank you so much, Ravi sir, for hosting this episode. It was a pleasure having both of you on these on the SCM talk show. Thank you, everyone, all the audience, for joining in, taking out time and listening to the show. I'm sure you have learned a lot. To connect with the speakers, you can always go onto LinkedIn. I have shared their links. You can always connect with them. Our next talk show is on 8th of May. It will be on elastic logistics, a very interesting topic, and the latest recent event of Suez Canal will be discussed in the show as well. So looking forward to see you everyone there. Please spread the word about SCM Talk Show and have a great weekend ahead. Stay safe. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks a lot, everyone.